Haitian's strategy of investigating an issue affecting society through interaction with stakeholders, experts, opinion makers, and regulators. The network's emphasis on international days enables it to address global problems. Remember, we are open for adverts placements, news and events coverage, personality, society and political interviews, products, service promotion, and commercials. You can connect with us on all our Haitian socials, Facebook and YouTube, Atlantic Television Network, Instagram and TikTok, Atlantic TV Network 1, on X, formerly Twitter, Atlantic TV Nets. Watch us live on our website, www.atlanticnetwork.tv. On today's special report, we take a look at Silence Couch, unveiling the epidemic of sexual harassment against women in Nigeria. Sexual harassment against women in Nigeria is a pervasive and deeply entrenched issue that transcends social, economic, cultural, and geographic boundaries. Despite growing awareness and legislative efforts, the scourge remains a silent epidemic, affecting women in homes, workplaces, educational institutions, and public spaces. This report examines the prevalence, causes, consequences, and societal responses to sexual harassment in Nigeria as of March 2025. It draws on recent data, survivor testimonies, and expert analysis to highlight the systemic nature of the problem and the urgent need for comprehensive solutions. Key findings include the alarming statistics that up to 70% of female undergraduates experience sexual harassment. The chronic underreporting due to stigma and inadequate legal enforcement, and the intersection of patriarchal norms with modern challenges like technology-facilitated abuse. The report concludes with actionable recommendations for policymakers, civil society, and communities to address these crises effectively. What is sexual harassment? Well, sexual harassment is defined as unwanted conduct of a sexual nature that violates a person's dignity or creates a hostile environment. It is a global human rights issue. In Nigeria, it is a particularly acute problem rooted in a patriarchal society. The gender inequality is normalized. The current date, March 4th, 2025, marks a critical juncture as Nigeria grapples with rising awareness of gender-based violence, GBV, amid persistent systemic failures. This report aims to assess the scope and nature of sexual harassment against women in Nigeria. Aim to identify the root causes and contributing factors, analyze the societal, legal, and institutional receives insight to propose strategies to combat the epidemic. The urgency of this issue is underscored by high-profile cases, grassroots movements like #ArewaMeToo and #WeAreTired, and the slow pace of justice for survivors. Women in Nigeria face harassment in diverse settings, from lecturers demanding sex for grades in universities to employers exploiting power dynamics in workplaces. This report seeks to amplify the voice of survivors and catalyze change. In section 1 of this report, we'll take a look at prevalence and scope. A statistical overview. Sexual harassment is alarmingly common in Nigeria. Well, according to a World Bank report cited in 2025, 70% of female undergraduates experience some form of sexual harassment during their academic journey. 2014 National Survey on Violence Against Children revealed that 1 in 4 females places. Studies estimate that up to 50% of women have faced harassment while unreported educational institutions. The sex for grades scandal. Police often lack training or willingness to investigate harassment cases. We take a look at technology facilitated abuse. The rise of digital platforms has introduced new forms of harassment, such as cyber stalking and non-consensual sharing of intimate images, amplifying the reach of perpetrators. Section 3. Consequences of sexual harassment. 1. Physical and psychological impact. Victims' physical injuries, unwanted pregnancies, and sexually transmitted. Psychologically, they experience educational and economic fallout. In schools, harassment leads to dropouts and poor academic performance. In workplaces, it causes career interruptions, lower earnings, and toxic environments, hindering women's economic empowerment. Societal ramifications. Unaddressed harassment perpetuates gender inequality, undermines social cohesion, and erodes trust in institutions. The normalization of abuse reinforces a cycle of violence across generations. In Section 4, we also take a look at societal and legal responses. Legislative efforts. VAP Act 2015 criminalizes sexual harassment with penalties, but adoption is patchy. Anti-Sexual Harassment Bill 2020 targets tertiary institutions, mandating ethical standards, yet awaits full implementation. State-level laws. Lagos and Kaduna have introduced stringent GBV laws, including castration for child rapists in Kaduna. Civil society and grassroots movements organizations like Stand to End Rape, STAR, Mirabel Center, and Women Advocates Research and Documentation Center, WADIS, provide psychosocial support, legal aid, and advocacy. Hashtags like "We Are Tired" have mobilized public outreach. Institutional responses. The Independence Corrupts Prac convictions were recorded because further silence reporting. Section 5. Case studies and survival voices. Vera Uwaila Omozua, 2020, a 22-year-old student raped in protest. And on IDB Camp testimony, a woman recounts sexual exploitation in exchange for food in Borno State. These stories illustrate the human cost and resilience of strengthened legal frameworks, fully domesticates the VAP Acts across all states, and enforce the Anti-Sexual Harassment Bill, enhance reporting mechanisms, establish confidential, survivor-centered channels in schools, workplaces, and communities. Public awareness campaigns, educate on consent